The night air was cold, the kind of cold that clung to bones and refused to let go. The bus stop lights flickered, and a young woman sat curled up on the bench, her knees pulled close to her chest. Her name was Eliza, though no one had spoken it in days. She had nothing but a worn-out backpack and a blanket that had seen better years. Her hair, once full of life, hung in tangled strands across her face, and her eyes carried the weight of countless sleepless nights. She had been homeless for nearly 6 months now, drifting from one corner of the city to another, holding on to scraps of hope like a drowning person clings to driftwood. People passed her by every day, and most didn't even look in her direction. Those who did usually wore expressions of pity or disgust, as if her misfortune was contagious. She had grown used to it. After all, life had never been kind. Raised in foster care, Eliza never really knew what it meant to belong. Every house she lived in had rules, every set of foster parents had limits to their kindness. When she turned 18, she was told it was time to make her own way. She tried, she really did. She found a job at a diner, managed to rent a small room, and told herself that she was finally free. But when the diner closed and her savings ran out, the streets swallowed her whole. Freedom, she learned, had a price. On this particular night, she had given up trying to keep warm. She sat staring at the cracked sidewalk, her mind drifting between hunger and despair, when a soft voice broke through her thoughts. "You need a home, and I need a mommy." Eliza blinked and turned her head. Standing before her was a little girl, no more than 7 years old, wearing a faded pink coat and holding a stuffed rabbit by its ear. Her eyes were wide, innocent, and far too brave for someone so small. Eliza sat upright, confused. "What did you say?" she asked softly, her voice raspy from disuse. The girl took a step closer. "You don't have a home, right? I can tell. And I don't have a mommy. So maybe we can help each other." Eliza's heart clenched. She glanced around, half expecting to see a frantic parent rushing toward them, but the street was empty except for a few shadows. "Where's your mom, sweetheart?" she asked carefully. The little girl's lips quivered, but she didn't cry. "She went to heaven last year. My daddy works all the time, and I don't think he likes being around me. He forgets me a lot. I came here to wait for him, but he didn't come." The words pierced Eliza's chest. She saw herself in that little girl, abandoned, unseen, left to figure out life alone. She shook her head. "I don't think I'd make a good mommy," she whispered, her voice trembling. But the girl smiled faintly, holding out her hand. "Maybe you're wrong." And for reasons she couldn't explain, Eliza took her hand. That moment, small, fragile, and almost absurd, was the beginning of something neither of them expected. The girl's name was Lily. She lived in a cramped apartment across town with her father, a man named Daniel who was drowning in his own grief. Since his wife's death, he had thrown himself into work, trying to outrun the loneliness and guilt that gnawed at him. He didn't mean to neglect his daughter, but every day he came home later, every morning he left earlier, and somewhere along the way, Lily stopped expecting him to notice her at all. Eliza and Lily sat together at the bus stop for hours, talking. Eliza found herself opening up about her past in ways she never had with anyone. Lily listened with wide eyes, and when Eliza's voice cracked, the little girl squeezed her hand. "You're not alone anymore," Lily said with childlike certainty. It was absurd. Eliza had nothing to give. She couldn't even feed herself most days. But that night, as she walked Lily back to her building and made sure she got inside safely, something in her heart shifted. For the first time in a long time, she felt needed. The next day, Lily found her again. And the day after that, she would sneak out of her apartment, carrying extra sandwiches she had hidden from dinner, and sit with Eliza at the bus stop. They would talk about everything, about school, about the stars, about Eliza's dreams that had long been buried. Lily had this way of looking at the world that made even the cold pavement feel less cruel. Slowly, Eliza's defenses began to crack. She started smiling again. She even laughed once, a sound that startled her because it felt so foreign. In return, she taught Lily small things: how to braid her hair, how to sketch little flowers in the corner of her notebook, how to sing lullabies her own foster mother once sang to her. But reality always finds its way back. One evening, Daniel discovered Lily wasn't in bed. Panic seized him until he saw her sitting on the curb with Eliza. His anger exploded. "What are you doing with my daughter?" he shouted, pulling Lily away. "Don't you ever come near her again." Eliza stood frozen, shame burning her cheeks. She wanted to explain, to beg him to understand, but the words stuck in her throat. Daniel didn't wait. He slammed the apartment door, leaving her outside once again, alone. That night, Eliza cried harder than she had in years. Not because of his words, but because losing Lily felt like losing the only light left in her darkness. She told herself it was for the best. Lily deserved better. But Lily didn't give up. She left notes on the bus stop bench, written in shaky handwriting. "I miss you. Don't be sad. You're my friend." Eliza collected each one, tucking them into her backpack like treasures. Weeks passed. Eliza grew thinner, weaker. The streets were merciless. One particularly cold night, she collapsed near the bus stop, too exhausted to move. She didn't expect anyone to find her. But Lily did. The little girl shook her awake, tears streaming down her face. "You can't leave me too," Lily whispered. "You promised." Eliza wanted to tell her she hadn't promised anything, that she wasn't strong enough, but the truth lodged in her chest. Maybe she had made a promise, even without words. Maybe Lily needed her just as much as she needed Lily. Daniel arrived moments later, furious and terrified. But when he saw the state Eliza was in, something in him broke. He hadn't noticed her pain before, he hadn't wanted to. But looking at this frail young woman holding his daughter's hand, he saw more than a stranger. He saw someone fighting the same battle he was: loneliness, grief, abandonment. Against his instincts, Daniel helped Eliza up. He brought her inside, gave her food, let her sleep on the couch. He told himself it was temporary, just until she got back on her feet. But days turned into weeks, and slowly, their lives began to intertwine. Eliza cooked small meals when she could. She helped Lily with homework, listened to her stories, filled the empty silences Daniel had left behind. For the first time since his wife's death, laughter echoed in the apartment again. Daniel resisted at first. He didn't trust easily, and he carried guilt like a shield. But he couldn't ignore the way Lily glowed when Eliza was around, or the way Eliza looked at his daughter with genuine love. He also couldn't ignore the way his own heart stirred when he saw Eliza's quiet strength. One evening, Lily fell asleep on the couch, her head resting in Eliza's lap. Daniel stood at the doorway, watching. "You care about her," he said quietly. Eliza looked up, her eyes glistening. "She saved me." Those 3 words hung heavy in the room. They weren't dramatic or poetic, but they carried a truth that Daniel couldn't deny. The journey wasn't easy. There were setbacks, arguments, doubts. Eliza struggled with self-worth, haunted by voices from her past telling her she wasn't good enough. Daniel wrestled with his fear of letting someone new into their lives, afraid of losing again. But Lily was their anchor, reminding them both what it meant to hold on. Months turned into a year. Eliza found part-time work at a cafe, then slowly saved enough to take classes in childcare. She discovered a gift for working with kids, a gift that had always been buried under survival. Daniel learned to balance work with fatherhood, realizing that no job was worth missing his daughter's life. One spring afternoon, as the three of them walked through the park, Lily skipped ahead, turning back to grin at them. "See," she said proudly, "I told you I needed a mommy, and you needed a home." Eliza laughed through her tears, looking at Daniel, who reached out and took her hand. In that moment, they weren't just three broken people trying to survive. They were a family, stitched together by love that came from the most unexpected place. And maybe that was the point. Sometimes the family we're meant to have isn't the one we're born into, but the one we find when all seems lost. Eliza still carried scars, of the streets, of her past, of the loneliness she once knew too well. But now, when she looked at Lily's bright smile and Daniel's steady gaze, she felt something she had never felt before: belonging. Her story was proof that even in the darkest corners, a single act of kindness, a single child's faith, could change everything. And so, when people ask her how she survived, how she turned her life around, she simply says, "Because a little girl believed I could be someone worth loving." In the end, that was all it took. Because sometimes, what we need most isn't money or success or even certainty. Sometimes,